The breath at my ear made the room tilt, sweet as ripe fruit. Hot enough to erase my name. One whisper, and blood ran backward. If desire has an age, mine refused it that night. Hello, my name is Daniel Sun, 61, male, a retired architect. I live alone above Ballard in Seattle. My marriage ended a decade ago. My children have their own families. Boredom pushed me to a community college workshop called Write Your Life. It felt safer than an empty kitchen. That's where I met her, Evelyn Choi, 43. Shoulder-length chestnut waves. A red knit on a generous figure. A gaze both daring and amused. Nice to meet you, Mr. Sun, she said, offering coffee as if it were permission. Conversation came easily. She said she had started writing after a divorce. I downplayed my career, but inside I was taller by an inch. To be seen by a younger woman, and kindly, felt like a lost key returned. We began to eat after class. I cooked and made a mess. She praised even my overcooked pasta. We watched old movies and shared the soft silences between commercials. She asked about houses I had designed. I asked what she wanted from her next chapter. A book with my name on the spine, she said, tapping the table like a vow. One night, the film couple kissed too long. The room shrank to our sofa. Her hand found mine. May I be a little bold? She asked. Wine lit her cheeks. From the first day, I kept looking for you. My heart stumbled. Age is just a calendar, she said. You make me feel alive. She leaned in. Her mouth brushed mine, tentative, then certain, like a note that finds its song. 10 celibate years cracked like thin ice. I let the moment expand until it held both of us. She led me down the hallway I had walked alone for years. My bedroom did not change its paint, yet it changed its weather. We crossed a line of breath and promise. I will not inventory the private geography of that hour. It is enough to say warmth returned to stubborn places. In the dark, she whispered praise older men are thirsty to hear. I slept with the window open and woke to morning like a first language. After that, the porch light became decoration. She stayed 3, then 4 nights a week. We cooked better, laughed louder, learned each other's small maps. Her habit of tucking hair when nervous, my ritual of checking locks twice. I am happiest like this, she said into my chest. I believed her. I wanted to. I stopped going to class. Why return to the room where a story begins when the story is here? Warm and breathing, I told myself this was late grace. A gift that made the old shame of divorce feel like a door that finally led somewhere. I did not yet know gifts can also be nets. That night when she first kissed me, a question opened like a skylight. Can a tired heart burn again without burning down the house? I fell asleep beneath its light, sure the answer was yes. The world went quiet after her confession, as if my old house had closed its eyes so we could breathe. I heard only the thud of my pulse and the faint rain stitching the window. Desire, at 61, is a trespasser that still knows the key. I'm older, I managed. Much older. She folded my hand in both of hers and waited me into calm. Then I get more to learn, she said, and smiled like a dare. Her kiss was soft, certain, not rushed. It asked for trust and it gave some back. We moved with the awkward sweetness of people who had once known the steps and were remembering them. I will not spill what belongs to the darkness of that room. I will say only that the winter in me thawed, one breath at a time. And I slept as if a furnace were installed behind my ribs. After, we learned a new weather. She began leaving a toothbrush, then a sweater, then a paper bag turned face down on the coffee table. We cooked on weeknights, walked Market Street on weekends, held hands at crosswalks like teenagers who had grown patient. You make the ordinary feel rehearsed for joy, she told me. Once, head on my shoulder, and I wrote the sentence down because I wanted to keep it. I stopped attending the workshop. Why circle origin points when a life is finally underway? I drew small plans again, not for buildings but for mornings. The mug she liked, the way light pooled on the kitchen tile. The routes we'd take when her ankle acted up. She read essays about reinvention. I told her stories of clients who cried when they entered a finished home. Let's build one for us, she whispered. Not with wood, with vows. A week later she asked it plain. Marry me. No drama, no tears, just a steady gaze heavier than any ring. I offered the sensible obstacles: age, adult children, the way neighborhoods talk. I don't need a parade, she said. I need a porch light I can count on. I took 7 days and a dozen long walks. In each one, I rehearsed the risks and found only her face. I said yes on a Tuesday, with leftover pasta on the stove and a storm on the way. We filed at the county office. She moved in for real. My son and daughter came for dinner the next weekend. I set 2 extra plates, thinking food might stitch a bridge. It did not. My son's voice sharpened. My daughter's eyes filled and hardened. Dad, she's 43, he said. What does she want? Evelyn sat very still and let the blows pass through her. I promised practical lines. Accounts untouched. House unchanged. No rushed ceremony. I mistook their quiet for consent. Later that night Evelyn held me closer than usual. Families learn, she whispered into my collar. Give them time. Give us time. For a while, it worked. Paper made us legal, habit made us brave. We slept easily, woke grateful, and stood on the porch with coffee, watching the mist lift like a curtain. I thought we had found the second act. Days settled into a rhythm I could name. We shopped at the Sunday market, argued about olive oil, learned which neighbors waved and which pretended not to see. Being married made us visible, being happy made us brave. Then one evening, over roast chicken and a second glass of Pinot, Evelyn straightened. I want to build something, she said. A press for seniors, memoirs only. People want their lives bound. Her eyes had the bright focus I had seen in architects with a new commission. I've sketched a plan. I need a small start. How small? I asked. 50,000. I tried the bank. My divorce wrecked the numbers. She laid out timelines, sample covers, a list of church and community clients. It looked real because she made it so, marking checkboxes, as if the future were a room already framed. I hesitated, and then she touched my sleeve. I'll pay it back in 6 months with interest. I want you to be proud to have believed in me." The sentence landed where pride lies. I wired the money the next morning, and felt oddly lighter, like a partner instead of a bystander. In the weeks after, she spoke of printers in Portland and a designer in Spokane. She came home with paper scraps and ink on her fingers. We ate late, we kissed at the sink. We laughed at the smudge of black she left on my cheek. I told myself the mess meant momentum. A month later she asked for more. 200, she said quietly. Authors are saying yes. Deposits will lock them in. If I miss this window, someone else will take it. She had emails, estimates, a calendar packed with names. I felt the old cautious part of me raise a hand. Then she kissed the top of that hand and whispered, "You believed once. Believe a little farther." I broke a CD and moved funds I said I'd never touch. She cried when I showed her the transfer, head bent, shoulders shaking, a thank you that felt like absolution. That night she fell asleep holding my forearm, as if it were a rail on a ship we were boarding together. We toasted with cheap sparkling water, because we had run out of wine, and laughed at the fizz. And I told her I had not felt this young since my first internship downtown. My children kept their distance, sending small questions by text. "You okay? Need anything?" I answered yes, no, and added pictures of the cat to look ordinary. On a breezy Thursday she mentioned a conference in Chicago. 2 weeks. The big distributors will be there. It could change the arc. She packed neatly, left a sweater on my chair to keep your seat warm, and kissed me with a care that felt like punctuation, not farewell. "Call me from the gate," I said. She promised. I watched her lift her suitcase into the rideshare, and wave, palm open, a little heart drawn in the air. The porch light found her hair and turned it briefly to copper. I held the image like a match that would not go out. 2 days before the flight she stood in the doorway with her laptop. "Last piece," she said. 300 will let me lock the distributor and lease a tiny office. After Chicago, no more guessing. She showed me a draft lease, a PDF full of boxes and numbers. It looked adult. I wanted us to be that. 300 was the wall I had sworn not to climb. I stared at the savings I had named for the long, lazy years. She touched my cheek with the back of her fingers, an old-world gesture that felt like a benediction. "Only if you can," she said. "I won't love you less if you say no." It was the cleanest trap permission shaped like mercy. I moved the money on a stormy morning. The confirmation pinged while the gutters filled. She hugged me, laughed into my shoulder, called me her partner. We ate toast for dinner and pretended it was a feast earned together. She flew out on a Monday. "Text me when you board," I said. "I will," she said. Her flight number sat in my notes like a pressed leaf. A day passed. Then 2. I sent a heart and a plain emoji. Nothing. I told myself conferences warp time. On the 4th day I called. Voicemail. On the 5th I wrote her designer in Spokane. The address bounced back undeliverable. I dialed a friend she'd mentioned. "Evelyn Choi?" the woman repeated, careful. "I don't know anyone by that name." The line went quiet. I walked the house taking inventory of her scarf on the couch arm, a sachet in the drawer, the paperback on the table heavy with a receipt as bookmark. Every item proved she had been real, none of it proved she still was. At midnight I opened the contracts folder. The logos were slightly wrong, the signatures strangely uniform. Once you know the trick, you can't unsee the wires. On day 7 I drove to the airport and stood by arrivals, watching people re-enter their lives. No Evelyn. A janitor asked if I needed help. I said no. In the parking lot I cried the quiet, older man's cry. Hands on the wheel, forehead close to the horn. I filed a report with SPD. The detective listened. Romance investment, she said gently. We're seeing more. They get smart. I brought statements and printouts in a neat manila envelope, as if tidiness could argue my case. We called the number again. Voicemail. That night I couldn't sleep in the bed, so I lay on the rug watching the ceiling fan slice the dark. At 3 a.m., my son texted Dad. I typed, erased, typed, erased, then wrote what I'd refused. She's gone. His reply came fast. I'm coming in the morning. Morning found me ashamed, then angry, then ashamed. I watered the yard as if green could forgive. When my children arrived, I told the story to the end. I heard how cleanly it had been built. Hello, praise, plan, urgency. Somewhere in the middle of the telling, I understood the worst part. It was not the money. It was that I had let hope be used as a lever against me. These cases are up, the detective told me. Older men with savings, community groups where trust grows fast. Hearing the description of myself stung worse than the numbers. Days turned to forms. We froze what we could, flagged accounts, and filed a civil claim with the criminal report. My lawyer, calm with gray streaks and sharp questions, asked for the timeline again. Be plain, she said. I spoke of dinners, plans, wires, and the ordinary kindnesses that looked like love. A week later the detective called with a new name. Not Evelyn, with an Oregon address and complaints behind it. I sat in my kitchen with the blinds half closed and tried to hold two truths. The woman who traced circles on my wrist while pasta boiled, and the person who took my future and boarded a plane. Shame is a busy craftsman. It builds a chair for you to sit in. I grew quiet, ducked neighbors, and let the refrigerator hold too much air. One afternoon the instructor from the class knocked, holding ginger tea. Happened to me, he said. Different shape, same hook. He suggested I write it down, for someone who might be standing where I had stood. Not to forgive her, he added. To forgive the part of you that wanted. I began with dates and amounts because that hurt less to touch. Then I wrote the small things: her laugh, when the kettle clicked, the way she tapped her pen 3 times before reading. I kept it factual, then found the facts, asking for sentences that could carry their weight. Pages became a stack. The stack began to look like a book. 9 months passed, then 12. I grew used to living inside one name again. The porch light kept its job. My children called on Sundays. I cooked better. I learned to enjoy a quiet that did not accuse. In late spring the detective called. We've located her. Manila. Extradition took weeks, arraignment longer. I sat in the back of a courtroom and watched a person with Evelyn's eyes. But not her certainty anymore. The charges were read. The judge looked bored, which felt like mercy. She took a plea. 5 years. Restitution ordered. The numbers smaller than the loss. I walked out into a Seattle afternoon so bright I squinted. I did not feel vindicated. Finished with a chapter I had not wanted to write. At home I typed the last lines and printed them on good paper. The thick stock she would have chosen. I placed the pages on the table and set a mug beside them. This is what I learned. I wrote in afterward. Love is not a guarantee, it is a weather. Hope is not a plan, it is a match. And dignity is not what you keep when life goes your way. It is what you rebuild when it doesn't. If someone needs this, take it. If no one does, it's still mine. Sometimes I still hear a whisper at my ear. I answer it with the porch light, with dinner. For one, with a book that remembers without begging to forget. I am 61, and I am here.